Summer update on my master copy of Solomon J. Solomon's Samson painting. While working on this painting, I feel like I'm really now starting to understand my palette. Solomon J. Solomon has a book out on painting, so I, of course, read through that, and I'm trying to make this painting in as the steps that he used to make the painting. And so I'm not just trying to copy the painting to get it to look like the Samson painting in my natural style, but I'm trying to mimic the style of Solomon J. Solomon with this painting. And so he also has in his book on painting the palette of colors that he uses, and so I've tried to mimic that in the same way. So before doing this one, had been painting in color for I think about a year now. I've been painting in color, and I'm using a limited palette though. At the Ravenswood Atelier, they start you off in a limited palette, which is flake white, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, and ivory black. So I'm using 4 colors, and those are really the primary colors because you have red and yellow, and then black acts as your blue. But Solomon J. Solomon has a full palette of colors, so I'm trying to use that. And so the palette that I have now, let's see, it goes flake white, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, light red, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, cobalt teal. There's a green, I can't remember what it is, if it's cadmium green or cobalt green. I don't remember. And then raw umber and ivory black. So that's a ton more colors than what I'm used to. And so when I started working on this painting, I realized that I wasn't using and pulling from any of the new colors in the full palette, but I was making all my mixtures from the original 4, which was the yellow, red, white, and black. And I just didn't see where I would need to use the other colors. I was comfortable using that really limited palette and getting everything that I wanted from that. So working more on this and seeing where I need to use other ones, especially blues, because in Samson, he's kind of got wrapped around his legs this blanket, and it does have a blue in it that I can't get with just mixing white and black. And so other things like that where I'm seeing where, okay, this is where I actually need to be using these other colors. So I feel like just a lot of experimenting on my own making this painting, I am seeing where I'm getting more comfortable, I guess, using the fuller palette and seeing where I can get more diverse and better, more accurate color mixtures using the fuller palette rather than just my extreme limited one. But then also over summer, I've been reading this book, which a friend is lending me, called The Painter in Oil by Daniel Burleigh Parkhurst. I'm not too far into it, as you can see my bookmark right there. I think I'm only in 100 pages into it, but this book is pretty great, and I'm getting a lot out of it. He talks about when you have a palette to have your primary colors, and for each primary color, you should have somewhere between 2 and 3 versions of that. So for example, red, you would have a red that leans more towards yellow, so a red yellow, and then a red that leans more towards purple, so a red purple. And he's talking about how you could then be using those different versions of the primary colors to get obviously different mixtures. And so he uses an example for if you want to get a vibrant orange. If you want to get any orange, what you're going to mix is red and yellow, make orange. So if you want to get a really vibrant orange, you would mix a red that leans towards yellow, so a red yellow, and then a yellow that leans towards red, so a yellow red, and those 2 mixtures would make a more vibrant orange. And then if you wanted a more grayed down orange, you would be using those 2 colors that are also going to be canceling each other out, that are opposite of each other, will gray it down more. So a red that leans towards purple, so the red purple, and then a yellow that would lean towards more green, so a red green. So in those 2 colors, you're going to have the complementary color in each. So that's going to gray it down. So the red and the green, and then the purple and the yellow. And so mixing those just two colors, you'll get the grayer version of orange. And reading that makes complete sense to me, and it seems really simple and easy if you think about color theory. But just having read that, and then that brings it more to my conscious of that's what I can be doing with all of these mixtures that I have, because I do have different versions of the same color. So on my full palette, I don't just have one red anymore. I have 3 reds, and so I can figure out how to use those to either get a more vibrant, intense color mixture that I want, or one that's more grayed down. So that tip has really helped me see where I can use all of those colors. And I can already see working on this painting how I'm really liking how my mixtures are turning out. I feel like before, something that I've noticed in my paintings is they're not as colorful as I want them to be in the lights, and then also in the darks in my paintings, I feel like it has a tendency to be chalky and not as rich of colors as I want either. And so thinking about what I had read in that book and the experimenting that I'm just putting into practice now for this Elementary Solomon master copy, I feel like what I was doing before making my mixtures, if I wanted to have a more grayed version of a dark color, for example, I would be adding more white into the mixture to get the gray version, because black and white is going to make a gray, and then you add either, from my limited palette, I'd have red and yellow. So I'd either add a red or a yellow or a combination of both. But I think I was relying on the white to get it to have that grayed version of it. And so now with this full palette and experimenting and getting tips out of books and what I'm just kind of reading and researching on by myself, I am liking my mixtures more, because I feel like I can get more in the darks, a more neutralized color without having to rely on white. But if I do add white, which it's been pretty rare that I've been adding white into these darker mixtures, but if I do, it's only a tiny bit of white. So I feel like I'm definitely liking this. I feel like I'm getting a bigger range of color and value and understanding them more in this master copy. Another reason why I like that this master copy is so massive, because I can figure out something in one area in it, and then I've got the whole other mass of the painting that I can be applying what I'm experimenting there in other parts, and seeing if it works there or if I need to tweak it in something that's similar, but it's just a different scenario in the painting. So yeah, this is really happy that I'm doing this, because I am figuring a whole lot out about how to use paint. And also with this painting, I feel like I'm still very much blocking in the whole painting still, correcting shapes, and actually it's mostly, I feel like, just correcting shapes right now. My values, I'm trying to get the values in color as accurate as I can while I'm correcting the drawing of everything, but I'm kind of letting those, the values and the colors go right now, and just really working out the main shapes and composition, and making sure all the drawing is as accurate as I can first. And I'm noticing that, well, okay, so when I start a day of working on this, what I'm doing is I sit in front of my painting and I stare at it for a long time, and I'm looking at the original. I have these printouts done by Vistaprint, by the way, which I'm super impressed with Vistaprint and how the prints are with this. Anyways, so I sit in front of the painting and I'm looking at my painting and the original, and seeing where the parts in my painting that are the least accurate, and that's what I'll plan to work that day on. And I'll make a plan and work on the weakest area and figure out where I'm going to go from there. And so I'll mix up my paint, and then I get to work on it. And I feel like my plan never stays the same throughout the whole day. I'll usually start in the area that I think I'm going to start in, but then I'll see that to be correcting this one area, I need to be correcting another area that's maybe really far away from that area. so I can get the relationships of shapes and just really working on this whole composition, because this composition is really genius with the swirling spirals of the figures, and everything just works so well together. I feel like if I do plan to work on an area that in the whole grand of the scheme of the whole painting is maybe relatively small, I never end up the whole day just working on that small area. My focus, I guess, might be working on that small area, but I'll realize that I'm putting paint down all over the whole entire painting. So I get the feeling then that everything's working together, and I really do get the feeling that I'm building the whole thing up at once. Even if I'm kind of focused in on one area, I'm still thinking about and changing everything else in the whole painting. And I'm liking this a lot because I know will have a tendency to kind of get tunnel vision on one area, but I feel like in this big painting, I'm really breaking away from that, and I feel like it's a lot more, well, it's more fun because it's more engaging, because I do feel like I get to work on this whole huge thing and everything's in relationship to everything, rather than something that if you kind of get tunnel vision, maybe I would start segmenting things and it wouldn't have this harmony or nice flow over the whole composition. Okay, and one last thing that I want to talk about is that, well, since I've been on break from school over the summer break, I've gotten a chance to really step back from school life and really kind of look around and see what people are doing now, what living painters are doing. And I've just been doing a lot of, I guess, comparing and contrasting, which with my favorite paintings from the past and from what's happening now. And honestly, when I do compare all these paintings, and I find that my favorite paintings, the paintings that I think are the best, are usually old paintings, and they're the paintings by the old masters. But I'm trying to figure out why I like those old paintings more than what's being mostly produced now. And I'm trying to figure out what we're missing, or what knowledge, or what's been lost in the passing down of painting knowledge, especially since the passing down of painting knowledge was almost completely wiped out as everything kind of got more into the abstract style of painting, and trying to figure out what maybe what we're not doing right now, which I think makes me not like the paintings being produced now as much as I like the older works. And I think if I had to distill it into a really simple answer, I think that would be harmony. I think that the older paintings, they have a whole harmony the very best paintings from the olden days have a harmony in everything, being a harmony in composition, color, value, drawing, edge work, whatever element that you can apply to a painting. There is this like cohesiveness and a design quality in all of it that really is harmonious. And I feel like that is something that paintings being produced nowadays, I feel like I don't normally see that in, at least as a whole. I feel like the paintings now are lacking in maybe one of those elements being harmonious, or maybe a combination of them. And it's almost like looking at a painting, something just doesn't sound as sweet, or there's a dissonance that doesn't get resolved, like something's out of tune. And so I think that's something that I want to keep looking at and studying, and doing a lot of comparing of paintings to see if I can come up with any more answers, or a better answer, or a better explanation.